So I'm going to start as if it's being recorded for the replay. So just thank you very much for everyone for joining today. This presentation is all about self-harm, and it's not a presentation, it's a session. Self-harm and suicide awareness. Now, both of you know me, people know me, I'm a psychotherapist. I work with teenagers and families and have done for many years. And I just think it's really important that we put this message together because so many parents it's their worst nightmare. And if you are having a teenager who is self-harming or is displaying signs of suicide ideation, then knowing what to do and how to manage it, we think is really, really important. So I've got Leah with me, and it was our first conversation that brought this presentation around. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, my lovely.
Yeah, so I'm Leah Day, as it says on my tin. I am a personal wellbeing advisor for males on probation, and I also have a little girl. Well, I say little; she's not little anymore. She's 11, but she suffers with anxiety, and I have my own personal experience of suicide. So I'm also a suicide prevention trainer. Which sort of come about after my dad ended his life many years ago. And so, yeah, so I got in touch with Laura and here we are. And this is what we decided to do. And I think it's deadly important. And my daughter's sort of give me ideas as we've gone along. So that's nice. So, yeah, that's me, really.
Ava's been great, actually. And in the PDF bundle that you've got alongside this workshop, Ava's put a few things in there herself. So Ava's put the stuff that she thinks that she wants teenagers to know. So if your teenager is in that area of self-harming, then Ava's put a little bit because she's experienced that area as well. And she's also, she's put together what not to say and what's not useful for parents to say. So that's really useful as well. So without further ado, we'll move on. So we've put this workshop together is especially for you if you're worried about saying the wrong thing or that you're making things worse. That's a big thing that comes up when I work with parents. Don't know what the signs are or what to do if you do spot them. And if you want clear, practical support for your teenagers without the overwhelm, then this is what we're going to cover today in the session. And we're looking at to replace the fear with knowledge. Now, I know we're not going to replace all the fear because obviously it's terrifying. When your teenager comes to you and they've been self-harming, that fear is very raw and it's very, very normal. So we're hoping that to give you some knowledge about the whys and what to do's will help that situation. So that's what the aim of this workshop is all about.
And it's also important to note as well that obviously this can be quite distressing, like talking about suicide and self-harm to anybody. So if any of you guys feel like you need to go off or you need to go for a brew or whatever, it's absolutely fine. Just you can either click a little emoticon buttony thing if you're technologically savvy. I'm not. I'm as bad as Laura. Or just write in the chat box that you need to pop off. That's absolutely fine. And then one of us will check it in with you. And I think Laura's number is on the email as well. If you want to check in with Laura, you can also do that. But it's just to obviously make that stress that it can be quite distressing, and it's okay. We're all human, so we're allowed to get upset and feel those emotions. But if you need to pop off, you're okay to do that. Don't feel like you have to stay.
Absolutely. And we'll be checking in, like Leah said. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at We're looking to break down the fears, the myths, and the unknowns around self-harm and suicide, and give you a sense of feeling quite clear and prepared and confident to support your teen, and hopefully walk away with a few practical strategies, some conversation starters, and a plan that you can use straight away. Now, this is all that's in the bundle. So I sent it out few days ago, but it's definitely been in the email that you got sent an hour ago. It's quite an in-depth thing, so there's lots of stuff in there, but we'll go through some of the stuff that's in that bundle as we go through it, but it's all there, so don't worry about making notes. You'll get all this in the back. Okay, so why is my screen not going forward? I've just said that you've got a bundle. Clearly I don't know my slides, but you have a bundle that has come alongside this workshop, and like I said, all of it's in there, and in the contents it will tell you exactly where things are. So the question is, how many times have you worried that your teen is self-harming or that they don't want to be here anymore? So I know that this is a big question that many parents are struggling with or not not knowing what's happening, or over worrying and lying awake in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, worried that you're self-harming, your teen is self-harming. And it's that concern of what to do with that information and what best to do for your teenager, but also keeping a hold of your own fears and your own huge emotions that come alongside that. Sorry, I've got to move my screen. I will figure out how to do a presentation one day. So how often have you felt like this, that you don't know if it's serious enough or if it's just a phase? So unsure of whether what you're seeing is a real warning sign of mental health or whether it's something they will grow out of. I just want to add on in there, self-harm is really, really high in teenagers. It's not so high in the adults, and there is a reason for that, and we go into that in a moment. So lots of parents will start to wonder if it's a phase that teenagers will grow out of. Majority, I'm going to say 98% of teenagers will grow out of it. But when you're in it, it's really, really difficult to even think that way, let alone believe that that's what's going to happen. It might be like, how often have you wanted to ask, but you're worried that you're going to say something wrong? So is something that you say to your teenager going to make them harm even more? Or are you worried that you're going to say the wrong thing and upset them? Are they just doing it for attention? Now, I know it's not something that we want to say because you don't want to go they're attention seeking, but I would challenge any parent that doesn't think, are they doing it for attention? Because again, teenagers will get a lot of attention from this, but it's not about them just being attention seeking. They're doing it for a reason, and we need to figure out what that reason is. So the fact that they are doing it is the issue in the first place. You know, like a toddler will do naughty things to get the attention. There's something going on for them to be doing this.
Yeah, so just to add to that as well, what I've learned is that it's never really for attention, as Laura says. There is always a reason behind it, and sometimes they don't always know why. And it, they might have no actual clue. And sometimes it's just something that begins because it sounds not bad to say the word nice, but to them it's like they can breathe again. So yeah, but I know what Laura's saying, but yeah, it's never really for attention.
So don't worry if you think that. So if you do think, is this attention? That's a very normal thing to think. It's not a bad thing to think. It's about why are they doing it? What is the attention that they're after for? And it's not because they want you to give them all, I can't think of a better word than other attention. There is something they are trying to explore, but they haven't got the words to do so. And if you've been in my stuff for a little bit of time, you'll know about the teenage brain, how this logic part isn't logic in at the minute. They don't have it. So they don't have vocabulary to explain how they're feeling. And when they have big emotions, then that's when self-harm comes into play. So we use the word attention seeking, but there's other stuff going on. Would you agree, Leah?
Yeah, definitely.
And you feel completely out of your depth. How there's many of us parents have never put a blade to their skin or done anything to hurt ourselves. So a very natural reaction to be is, oh Lord, what are they doing and how do I work with this? So this is what this workshop is all about. Come on, click over. Let me move you. What we really want though is to know for sure if your teen is struggling and what you're doing, or are you overthinking it? A way to talk about these things without feeling that you're making it worse, a way to feel confident that you're handling it with the right thing, and also to know that everything will be okay and that you are doing everything you can to support them. And that is what parentology is all about, is making sure that you parents, it's making sure that you parents are getting that reassurance and that support that you need and answers to know that your teenagers are going to be okay. So a lot of my work is reassuring, and this is something that is so I'm just going to let this person in, but I need to come off my screen. But it is something that is going on. I'm not doing very well doing two things at once. Bear with everyone. Oh, I've got to come out my screen. Right, there we go. I'm back. There we go. We've got Zoe joining us. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do, is to give the reassurance and understanding, and we do that through giving knowledge. So you're probably here, you've probably joined Parentology because you've tried everything. You've tried giving them space, you've tried, let me move my screen, you've tried asking what's going on, but you're getting the literal, I'm fine, it's nothing, don't worry. You're telling yourself it's just a phase. Laura's just told me they're going to grow out of it, so I don't need to worry. This is all going to pass. you're looking for the signs, but you're not quite sure what signs we're looking for. I mean, you've got the obvious ones from scars and the cutting, but other ones can be very, very discreet, especially if they're not cutting on the wrists or the arm. They could be doing all sorts. We do go into all of this, but they could be using food as a self-harm. They could be using drugs and alcohol. They could be using over exercising. They can do so much other stuff. And no doubt, I know most of you have been through Google, you have been through the NHS, you've been through camps, you've been through schools, you've tried it all, but your teenager is still self-harming or they're still showing that ideation, and we just don't know what to do for the best. The biggest thing I'm going to say to you, and what I want to come out of this workshop, is we can't fix it. Your teenager is experiencing what they're experiencing, and one day they will be absolutely fine, and the next day they have gone all hell on their arms. So we are not giving you a solution. There is no solution we can give you. And I think that's what a lot of parents do, is we panic, very normal, and we reach out to Google, we go to camps, and we try and get answers, and there are no answers. All we can do is ride the, I hate saying this, it's the same word as journey, like you're on a journey. It makes me feel, but we need to ride it with them, okay? Because they are going through some big, big emotions, and they are doing what they can to cope with those big emotions. Now, what we need to do as parents is to support them through that and reassure them, because they will be terrified about what's going on. They will be thinking all sorts of stuff because they only pick their phone up and TikTok it, and they've got 100 things going on there. So we are teaching you how to feel reassured and where to go to get that support if you're feeling out of your depth, because listening to somebody else, either through the parentology community of other parents that are going through this, or through working with myself, or even speaking to Leah, and understanding that you are not on your own. We lose a lot of support when our teenagers become teenagers, because we're kind of expected just to crack on and do it with them. So I just want to make it clear that we don't have an answer. We're not going to go, this is what you need to do and your teenager will stop self-harming. It's not like that. It's about knowledge and education and learning.
And in addition to what Laura said, the knowledge and education is about our own teens, because there is a societal expectation as a parent that you're supposed to know it all, and our kids are supposed to be these perfectly well-groomed human beings. In actual fact, we're not perfectly well-groomed adults, because really we aren't. We're all sort of having a bash and winging it, and it's all about learning about ourselves before and learning about our child. So not every teen and every child is the same. Like Laura said, the self-harm will be different too. It's not always the same. So the strategies what might work for, say, my daughter might not work for your daughter or your son. So everybody's different. So don't worry that if you try something and it's not happened, or it's, you feel like it's got worse or nothing's worked. Actually, it's just there's other things that might be more comfortable for them.
Spot on. The biggest thing I will say that will work with all teenagers is consistency. Is be consistent with them. No matter what you're feeling or how you're going through, be consistent with them. We will go into that. We've kind of half introduced ourselves, but I think we've kind of understand what we're here to do. We're not here to fix everything. We're just here to give the knowledge and reassurance and understand that you are certainly not alone. I can easily say, from a counsellor and a mentor coach person that I'm working, I would say 80% of the parents I'm working with are having teenagers that are self-harming in some form. It is beyond common, and that's such a sad statistic. I don't know if that's just because we're very much more aware now, or whether teenagers are doing it more now, but you are certainly not alone at all in this. And the sad thing is, the Googling it, you'll get very generic information, and the generic information will work for some people, absolutely. But I think the fact that you're here, and the fact that most of you have been with parentology for some time, is that you need something else. Something else needs to happen, needs to change. So you know me, I'm parentology. I'm Laura. I'm a psychotherapist. I've worked with teenagers all of my career in various hats, and I do this, is what I'm going to say. But I don't want to introduce yourself because we've got Zoe here. So hi, Zoe. You don't have to say
Yeah,
hello.
you're right.
So I'm Leah, like I said before, and so I am a personal wellbeing advisor for males on probation. I am a suicide prevention trainer, as well as a mum to a young teenager with anxiety, and my own personal experience of self-harm and suicide. So yeah, I mean, like I said before, it's important to do this, and also to the education part of it for any parent is important. I think all you can do is educate yourself. And I know you were saying, sort of, Laura, like, okay, it's sort of, you know, how things might be different now, so people are more aware of it, and it probably is with the talk more around mental health. Sadly, the stigma is still there. So I can say that, I mean, my dad passed away in 97, and that was a long time ago, but it can still be a bit taboo. And I have realised in my job that a lot of our service users really do not like to say they feel a certain way. But also, I know from my own experience from being a teenager that us parents also don't also know what's going on. So it's never easy. It's not
Mhm.
straightforward. So as well as looking after our teens, we've got to look after ourselves as well.
Absolutely. And me and Leah will absolutely be keeping this real. We both have teenagers. I've got a 14 and a 16-year-old. They drive me insane. We have certainly gone through our own mental health struggles with them. So they've both, I was going to say tampered with self-harm. That's not the right word, but they've dabbled in it. And they've both been in therapy sessions and worked through their own stuff. So we're coming from parents and from professionals. So we're in it with you. Kind of explored this today. We're going to look at how to spot the signs of self-harm and when it turns into suicide ideation and the difference between the two. You're going to learn how to talk to your teenager about it, and we're going to look at how to look after yourself, because you're no good to anybody if you're pouring from an empty cup. What's that saying? You can't pour from an empty cup. Anyway, why do teenagers do it? Let's get into it, right? Why do teenagers need to self-harm? I've kind of explored this a little bit already, but teens' brains are hardwired for emotion. They come out of the womb screaming. They are fully emotional beings the day they are born, but they don't have this logical brain to emotionally regulate themselves. If you've got neurodiversity going on, then we've got a whole different ball game going on there, because we know anxiety is more rife within the neurodivergent community. So we're trying to deal with the fact they don't have this logic brain going on. And when you've heard my stuff before, if we've had a bad day at work, we can come home, we know what to do to unwind. Teenagers don't have that ability. They need almost an instant gratification to release that stress, or they need a way to, some of the stuff, like Leah said at the beginning, could be a bit triggering. So please forgive me if some of this sounds a little bit out of the ballpark. What the hell am I talking about? You know what I mean? But that's how I talk to the clients that I work with. We can't keep making this a taboo subject. But if you are, self-harm can sometimes be a really mindful practice. So you have two types of self-harm. You have this sort of really irrational, I'm just going to go for it because I'm feeling so much, in which case they then take blade, they can do other things, but they take blade to their skin and they go for it. Or you get this more sort of calming one where they need it to ground themselves. So they'll start self-harming, but it's almost a bit of a practice, a ritual to them, where they might put the lights down, they might put music on, they might do it in a quite a ritual kind of way. I'm not
Becomes a coping mechanism.
better. Go on, Leah.
Becomes a coping mechanism, and that's what I found with my daughter. It becomes a cycle where it's certain things that will trigger them, and they have to go to a certain place and do that, or you know, whatever it is that they need to do. And it does take time to break down, but it can be broken, but it does become just a normal everyday part of
Yeah.
their cycle.
Absolutely. And part of being a therapist and work with teenagers who are self-harming, I will never, ever tell them to stop. I do go into this in a little bit, but I will never take it away from them because it is a coping mechanism. So if you take the blades away, I mean, there is a safety plan in the pack that you've been given that says to make things safe, but do it within a reason that they're not going to go and break a bit of plastic to do it, or they're not going to find something that's not clean to do it. So taking away their coping mechanism can actually create a much, much bigger problem. So it's about being able to figure out what's going on around your teenager rather than the actual act of the self-harming. I'm going to pause there because I think somebody else is joining. Bear with. Leah, I will absolutely make you an admin next time. Oh, what am I doing? Hold on. No, I don't know what that was all about, so I'm going to stop.
Stop clicking things.
Stop clicking things, Laura. Right. So we wouldn't be taking away their self-harming. Teenagers are doing it either in a very angry, impulsive, that's the word I'm thinking of, impulsive way, or they're using it to ground and work through their emotions.
Mm.
Things that we think are quite small, so friendship dramas, exam stress, social media pressures, even if they're just scrolling the certain TikTok dance trend at the moment, things like that can put so much pressure on our teenagers. And the one thing that we can do, parents are quite good at doing, is belittling that thing. Like, we know with our logic thinking, if they fall out with a friend, they're going to be friends the next day, or in a couple of weeks they'll be friends again, or they'll find a new friendship group. Your teenager, it's life or death at that point, because their catastrophizing brain is like, well, I've fallen out with so and so, so that means no one's going to sit with me at lunch tomorrow, and then no one's going to do PE with me, and I'm just going to be that loner weird girl in the end that no one likes. That's how their brain's working, and in their school world, that's very possible, very real. So they are feeling these big emotions, and we can sometimes belittle them. Those emotions, going, oh, it's not so bad, it's not the end of the world, just text them, it'll all be fine. And that can lead them to go more inward and do the self-harming, because we're not
Yeah,
hearing them, understanding what's going on.
mm-hmm.
They also lack the coping skills, like I've just said. They don't know healthy ways of managing their stress and emotions, and no that's no indication on how they've been brought up or any sort of parenting. It's because their brain is not developed. And again, this is what I hear from parents, that they feel that they've done something wrong, which is why their teenager is self-harming, and it's absolutely nothing to do with that. I'm not, in some cases it's going to be the reason, but majority of cases, when you've had a really good relationship with your teenager for most of their life, and then they hit their teen years and they start doing this, it's because they just haven't developed the logic, coping mechanisms to deal with these big emotions. And that's where we can come in and support them through the scripts that we'll give you. So they don't want to feel this way. I can tell you now, I've not met a teenager who enjoys self-harming or wants to self-harm. Every single one of them wants to stop and wants to find a different way. It's just that they don't know how to do that yet. And that's where the generic advice that you get from the NHS website in terms of elastic bands, ice, and draw on your leg, for some people that will work. The majority of teenagers, that won't even touch the sides. So we have to be aware that us giving them that bit of advice isn't particularly helpful. Professionals that work with teenagers in this way, that are giving that advice, need to understand the deeper roots of the self-harm first, because we need to know why they're doing it. With paper over cracks is no good. So this is annoying because I can't see it. Why do teens self-harm, or why do they think about suicide? Right, excuse me while I move you out of the way there. It's to release the overwhelming emotions. Self-harm is like a pressure valve, and when the emotions become too intense, they have to release it. That's what they're doing it for. Even if it's in a calm, more mindful moment, they're doing it to release their emotions. They need to feel something. Some teenagers speak to me and saying that they just feel so numb, because when the emotions become really big and they're feeling lots of pressures and stresses, and their body image, and they're worried about their friendships and all the stuff that comes along with being a teenager, it can overwhelm the emotional brain. This bit I've talked about, if anyone, I'll explain that bit again, but there's a bit in the middle of the brain that's the emotional bit. It becomes overwhelmed, and it floods the brain with adrenaline and cortisone. These are our stress and anxiety hormones, and it short circuit. It's like if I poured a cup of tea over my laptop, it would just stop working. So teenagers can sometimes self-harm to feel something. They need to feel the pain to ground themselves back in their bodies. Some, sadly, this really breaks me, is that they will feel like they need to punish themselves. So they feel like they deserve to have pain. They have a self-hatred, and they have their self-worth is very low. If your teenager is describing any of those sort of emotions, I would absolutely be getting them into therapy, because it's a deeper level of stuff going on and takes a little bit more work as to find out where the root of that deep shame has come from. It could be that a friend 3 weeks ago said something to them. It could be something more deeper and a bit more of a mental health issue going on. Counselors can distinguish that quite quickly. So I'm here. So please get in touch and talk to me if you feel that your teenagers are doing it for a self-hatred point of view. To gain control, Things like exercise, food control, and self-harming with cutting is a way of gaining control in a world that feels extremely chaotic. It's getting control of something. And the suicidal thoughts that we do talk about in a moment that come in is often about escaping the pain, not about dying. Teenagers are, I describe it to them like, when you're at the seaside, you get the claw machines that get the toys that you never win. I say to them, if I could take you out of this life, take you out of the school, take you out of the home, take you out of your life and put you on a beach in Hawaii, because who doesn't want to go to Hawaii, would you feel this feeling? And majority of them will say no. So it's like they don't want to end their life, they want to end the situation they're in. So that's where people start homeschooling. That's where we start taking them out of the situation they're in, because we can see as adults that this situation is not good for them. Therefore, we're going to remove them, and that's not unusual in the world of teenagers self-harming. So yeah, it's not about always wanting to die. Hold on, where's my buttons? There you
And
go.
that's sort of the same for adults as well. So
Yeah.
usually it's just they just want everything to stop. They want everything to pause around them. It's just life doesn't sadly work like that. So
Wouldn't it be great if you could
if only.
pause and have a moment? We're going to look at how to spot the signs. Now, these are generally the signs of more self-harm, because suicidal signs are quite clear. So self-harm and suicidal thoughts don't always look like that you would expect them to do. You've probably all heard the stories of one day, an adult, we'll talk about adults, someone talk about children in this way, but he was absolutely fine at work and then they've gone and taken their life that day. There's no real signs there's no tick list, we can't give you that, but understanding your child and understanding those subtle signs and the hidden struggles will absolutely help. This is quite a good one. I like this quote. The signs are often quiet, and learning to see them is the loudest way to show that we care. I think this comes down completely to you understanding your child. And I know when we get teenagers, we end up getting this weird monster of a thing that lives with us, and we don't quite sure who they are anymore. But your consistency in your communication, if they allow you to talk, because I know that a lot of teenagers have either completely shut the adults out in their world or are completely withdrawn, but trying to learn their little ways is really, really important. And just being able to spot the signs is the loudest way that we can care, because we verbalize that to them, and we'll show you that in the scripts as well. Okay, quite obvious ones, some of these ones. If you do want to do this one, Leah, I feel like I'm just chatting away.
It's absolutely fine. So yeah, spotting the signs is different with I think everybody, not just teens but adults as well. So it can be unexplained injuries. You know, self-harm isn't just cuts, it's things like, there can be hand biting, burning, bruises, scratches, can be all sorts of things like, like Laura said, controlling their eating, over exercising, cutting themselves off, just isolating sometimes. And I know people say, oh, that's normal for a teen. Some teens it is, but some, if you know your children, that isolation is a big thing that all of a sudden, and they don't want to talk to anybody. That can also be worrying. But yeah, unexplained injuries, covering up. So if they're wearing long sleeves and it's roasting hot outside and they've got a big coat on and you're thinking, what are you doing? Sometimes it can just be if somebody's acted out in that way and in that moment and they thought, right, that's it, and they've cut themselves or burnt themselves or whatever they've done, and then they thought, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So sometimes it can be the shame feeling that they're carrying, so they're trying to hide that. And frequent accidents, so that can be linked to them self-harming. So they're saying, oh yeah, just fell over or knocked myself at school, or it could be anything like that. And you're sort of thinking, we've fallen over quite a bit, I don't know what's going on here. Or sometimes even at school there could be accidents and actually it's just them wanting to come home because they don't want to be there. Keeping objects for self-harm, yeah, like Laura said earlier, it's taking that away. It's not that we're condoning self-harm at all, but taking it all away is like shutting them off. So sometimes that can close them off to us. So that safety plan in the pack is really important. And having that conversation, I know it's difficult, but it's one thing I have learned is just to be direct with it and sort of have that conversation. But taking that all away can be really isolating. So sometimes, you know, we've all done it when we've said something as a parent. I know I do it, and I think, oh, for God's sake, well, I've said that. And you know, so sometimes people can, you know, sort of keep the objects and think, right, well, if I hide that, mum or dad won't know about that, and then I can keep that and use that for that. And emotional distress and withdrawal, like I said, it can just be the fact that they isolate. They can be very irritated or just moody. And I know people say that's normal teenage stuff. I know hormones are lovely things. But it can just literally be that it can build up and build up. And then one day they might burst out crying and you have no clue why. And you know, I'm sure we've all been there, and it can be quite overwhelming. So it could just be that they cut off from friends. But as Laura said, if you know your child and you're watching them and you think, okay, well, actually, they've not gone to so-and-so's house and they're fine, they're telling me they're okay, there's nothing wrong with that friendship, then sometimes that can be a worrying sign.
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on, where's my dot? Oh my God.
I know, you've got a dot, I think. Yeah, so talking about death or not wanting to be here. So I mean, that can be hard anyway. So sometimes kids are just not interested, I don't know if interest is the right word, they sometimes want to know a bit about,
Curious.
yeah, they're curious, they want to know about death or why aren't we here anymore. And, you know, especially if it's a trigger around their self-harm. I know for my daughter, when she lost her nan and her granddad within a month of each other, that was where her self-harm started. So that was a very big emotional situation, because she was tiny. Me and her dad did not realise actually that was the trigger. And it can be very hard, because then it can then be a worry of, well, who's going to go next? That can also be a worry. But also then the interest of, well, like it says, I can't do this anymore, I don't want to be here, I've had enough, I'm stepping off. So there is other wording around suicide as well. So it's not, we don't say committing suicide anymore, saying this to Laura the other week, because actually that can make people feel that they're doing something wrong. Because obviously suicide was once illegal, and committing suicide is related to that. It's because you're committing a crime, so committing suicide could be seen as a crime. So actually, you know, they might say things like, oh, I want to step off, or I'm bouncing, I'm out, I'm done. And that can be worrying, because we don't know what to say to that. Because really what you want to do is scoop your child up and say, no, don't need to go anywhere. But sometimes it can just be over something that we think is the tiniest thing, but it's not. And sometimes it can also be that one day they're absolutely like adamant, I don't want to be here anymore, I've had enough. And the next day they can be really, really happy. And you're thinking, what? And that can happen. That shift in mood can be a big thing. And that can also be a worry, because if their mood is so shifted, it's not always, but sometimes it can be the fact that they've already planned it and they know what they're doing, and they're getting things in order now. And that's what they've decided. And what I have learned in my own personal life and from work is that, sadly, sometimes, you know, we can't stop that, but it's noticing it to be able to have that conversation. Because there is research that, especially with young people and teenagers, that if we can intervene and give that support, more than likely 9 times out of 10 they can work through those feelings and that feeling of self-harm, and that can change. So yeah, talking about being a burden, I know sometimes we say that when we're feeling low ourselves. I know I've said it a few times. And again, it's when those emotions can feel very heavy, and they think, you know, we've moaned at them for not washing up or something, you know, and we think it's just the norm, which it is the normal thing, you know, stick your stinky socks in the basket and stick your plate in the sink. And they're like, I don't want to be here anymore. And you're thinking, you're being a bit dramatic here. And they're telling you, I'm a burden. You know, this is a bit much. And again, it's natural. I felt like that model. I'm like, what? I've just asked you to do something. But actually, it's just because there might be a lot of little things building up. And again, like I said, sudden calm after deep distress. Withdrawing from life, as I said earlier, they might stop doing things that they love. So, you know, some young people, they love their sports or art or whatever it is. And I know teenagers do change, they start to go off things and start to go on to new things, and that's fine. But if you know, they're really passionate about something and they've put that away and thought, no, that's not me anymore. It can just, again, it's that isolation. And increased risky behaviour. So, you know, if you're getting calls from school every other day or every other week, they're drooling, or, you know, they're having a fight with the teachers. We've all been there, maybe just me. And, you know, you find them. I mean, I don't think kids drink in the park anymore. I don't know. Or, you know, the vaping or whatever it is, and you're thinking, well, this is not like my child at all. I know people say it is part of teenage life, and yeah, we do make those decisions that aren't always clever, and we do those things. But if it's getting increased risky, it's getting more and more risky, and you're thinking this is becoming more and more dangerous. Sometimes it can just be the fact that they may have thought, well, actually, no, I don't really care what happens to me now. And that can be obviously a worrying time, not just for you, but for them too. They may be just as worried, but actually they've just come to an idea that it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. I'm going to add into this, I'm going to add the therapist point of view and what a therapist sees when we start to really get quite concerned about a teenager, well, about anyone who's in it. When we talk about a sudden calm of sudden calm after deep distress, it's an eerie calm. So I'm not just saying like the typical teenage behavior where they've had a really bad day and then they're okay. That's normal teenage behavior. And this is where I really urge people to check in using the support that Parentology offers, because we can talk this through and I could be looking at the signs a little bit deeper. But I'm talking like a real weird piece sound, like eerie. So not just that they're just a bit happier. That's great. We want them happier.
Yeah.
I'm talking like a real calm, like, yeah, I'm not bothered anymore. It's a weird sense of,
Yeah, and you can feel in your gut that it's just
yeah, you know, this
overly
is
happy,
okay.
and it's just very strange, and it's not like they probably were yesterday or the day before. It's very over the top, and it's like they're at peace.
I'll tell you what, this is completely irrelevant, but the reason so my daughter, for some of you that know, when she was 6, she fell down the stairs and she had a head injury. And you know, when they say like they start feeling sick and just be careful of confusion, she was like the exorcist. Her whole behavior changed and she was being sick like this. So we knew that something wasn't right. This wasn't a gut feeling. This was clear as day. And when I've seen clients get into this real peaceful sign, you think, oh, something's happening. It's a real weird sense of calm that they've made peace with it all. So I don't want parents to go away worrying that, oh my God, she's fine today, this means it's the end. That's not what I'm saying. You will have a gut instinct as a parent. And that's what I really want to highlight, is that your gut is never wrong. And I'd rather you be overcautious and get support. And we talk about the support in a moment, but than not get that support, because I'd rather be annoying to someone than to not be in a good place because they've gone and done something. And the withdrawing from life, again, I would expect a teenager to not want to go to the family barbecue or a wedding that's coming up. I would expect that. But we mean withdrawing from life, but in a depression. So they haven't opened their curtains, they haven't showered for a week, and that's quite typical for a day. But if they're not their usual. So if they normally shower every other day or every day and they haven't for a week or two, they're no interest in anything that would normally give them joy. That's when we can. So I'm talking like kid, and then a teenager will sort of dip up and down, but I'm talking they go low, and you're thinking, holy Christ, what's going on here? And the risky behavior, yes, like getting in trouble at school and things like that, but almost like if they've got a friend that drives, they don't put their seatbelt on. They will do parkour and be jumping off bloody buildings because they don't care if they die. And actually, more worryingly, more recently, I've worked with a teenager who was hoping that she would have an accident so bad that she would die, because then she wouldn't have the guilt that she'd live with her parents. And there was this weird sort of thing going on. She was trying to have an accident that would give her that result. So all of this can be worked with. So I don't want parents to go away terrified that this is what's going to happen. It's about being able to listen to your gut instinct and go, something is not okay. Something is really telling me that this is not okay. Then you must reach out. In your bundles, there is loads and loads of different contacts. So there's loads for your teenager as well, if they're going to engage. I work with lots of teenagers, but I also know a lot of teenagers won't work with a therapist or with anyone. So that's why I'm doing parentology. I'm working with the parents, so we can't get to the teenagers. But there are brilliant ones. So Your Mind, not Your Minds, Young Minds and Childline have a text counsellor that they can sit and text a counsellor. But there's also people there for you as well to contact if you're saying, do you know what, something doesn't feel okay. And then that person on the end of the phone can talk you through a checklist of what to look for and tell you what to say to them and how to speak to them. If we are working together, if you're working with me on the one-to-one packages that we have, I will work you through that process as well. But obviously, if it's out of hours, there is always someone there to talk to. So if your gut is screaming that something ain't right, then please God listen to it, because even if you're fine and they're having a mood swing, we'll take it. I'd rather take that. So it's an important one, that one. I just said that. Take it seriously. Any sign of I'm a not a burden, but a real sort of you don't need me here, you don't want me here. If they're saying that I don't want to be in this life anymore, if they're saying any of that, please take it seriously. Overreact to this one.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, I mean, I know, like I said, when of my daughter said before, I'm like, being a bit dramatic there. You've just put a plate in the sink. Actually, it still worries you as a parent, so do take it seriously, especially if things are happening. Because actually, you don't know what's going on in their heads. You really don't.
And this is what I'm trying to get out on the parentology, and it's I'm not the best at marketing, as you might have seen, but if you have any, you've got my number, call me, just ring me, and because I'd rather talk you through some of the signs and put your mind at ease, or put you in touch with people that we need to know to support. So please do that. What's that saying? Notice, look beyond the obvious. So don't just look for the cuts. They might be doing all sorts. Pulling hair is one that's starting to come up quite frequently in the minute, because it's quite, they go underneath and they pull. But if you know what it's like, if you get a hair pull, it bloody hurts. But they're doing it to get that same feeling or the reckless behavior. Notice the emotional shifts. So the increased anxiety, withdrawal, and sudden mood swings. Any of these, if your gut's telling you this isn't normal behavior, reach out and speak to someone. Listen to their words. I don't want to be here. I just want everything to stop. That's one that happens a lot. I just want everything to stop. Never ignore it. Stay calm, even if you feel panic. What I mean by that, right? Stay calm if you feel panic. As if your teenager is saying these words to you, the first thing I would expect every parent to do is to freak out and panic. They will pick up on that, and then if they see you panicking, they're going to shut down, because they don't want to upset you. They don't want to be a burden to you, and that's the hardest thing, is because then they will start to withdraw. So even if you are breaking inside, obviously, like I've been here with one of my own daughters, and I just sobbed. I was so distressed by what she told me, and it was all to do with a bullying thing that was going on, like something that was happening at school, and it was almost like, I'll show them, I'll kill myself, and I will show them. And I was like, oh, God, and I had to kind of put it together and then talk to her through it and like understand what was going on for her, because it was very out of the blue. However, then I went away and I just crumbled into a mess. Unfortunately, being a therapist, I've got lots of therapist friends. So I just picked up the phone and spoke to someone and calmed myself down. But that's where we need.
And it's knowing it's allowed, because, like I said, I have a report plate in the sink, and I mean, that is a real thing that has happened, where she's like, I'm a bird and you don't want me around, and I wish I wasn't here anymore. And I'm like, oh God. And she's gone away, and I've gone and sat down with her and said, hey, are you all right? And then sometimes she's cried and she's been like, this is going on. And sometimes she's just shouted at me and told me to leave her alone. And all you want to do is hide under a blanket, eat loads of ice cream, and cry your eyes out, and get somebody to fix it, because you don't know what to do. And it's okay to feel like that, because they're your babies. You gave birth to them, and they're here. Or even if you didn't give birth to them, you've adopted them, whatever. They're your babies. Whatever context you've got those children in, they're yours, and you love them, which is why you're here. Otherwise, you won't be here. Listening to me ramble on. But given them that time, it does hurt, and you can think, oh God, it's a bit much in that moment. But when you go and sit and you listen to them, it's just giving them that chance for them to talk. Because it is normal to go, oh my God, what are you saying that for? It's giving them that time to just be able to say, well, actually, this is going on, or, whether they didn't mean it or whatever it is, or, it's just giving them that space so they don't shut down, because giving them that open platform means that relationship is still there, if something is too much, it's still there. They can come to you and say what they need to say, you know, whether they want to be, whether they want to say they want to be here or not. It's important for them to have that.
Absolutely. Oh my God, this should have done a tech run through. All right, so how to talk to your teen. So you've started to see the signs, you're starting to think, uh-oh, the gut's not feeling this, it's not okay. Oh my God, what's happening? First thing to do is to try and talk to your teenager. Like you said there, Leah, that you could get that I'm fine, go away, leave me alone. It could be that they want to open up and talk. So how do we do it without fear? Because we will very much project our anxieties onto them. So even like I said at the beginning, 1 minute your teenager could be absolutely in the pits and the next day actually be absolutely fine and engaging in real life, totally normal. But we are going, are you all right? Are you all right? Is everything all right? And we could be projecting our own fear because what we want them to say is, yeah, fine. And you will get that. Your subconscious will be picking up the body language and you'll be like, okay, actually, they're all right. So we then ease our anxiety. So how do we talk to them without projecting our own anxiety, our judgment? So if, like you're saying, I'm a burden, oh, for God's sake, no, you're not. How do we stop that judgment and how do we stop putting the pressure on them? So how to start the conversation could be terrifying because you think, oh God, if I say the wrong thing, they're gonna. I'll tell you what happened with mine is any time that then they started to have if they got moody at me or I told them to wash up or whatever and they stormed upstairs after a row, I'd immediately be up there apologizing, regardless of what it was about, because I was terrified that they would then self-harm. And then I'm like, it's got to be wrapped around her little finger because she knows exactly what she's doing. And it wasn't because she was self-harming or in a mental health state. She was then using it as a manipulation tool. So there was this pressure and fear and judgment and all sorts of stuff going on until we just sat down and thrashed it out because you can't do that because my nerves are at the end. What have I put here? Don't avoid the conversation. You need to speak to them because
Don't avoid it.
there you go.
Asking, it's totally right. Asking won't make it worse. Staying silent might. Nobody died from asking the question. Nobody died from asking. And if you all remember back to when you was a teenager, I know that if I'd have had somebody there to communicate with and say, do you know what, Lee, you're all right. Why you're not yourself at the moment? The decisions that I made then probably I probably wouldn't have. So I mean, my own personal thing, I tried to commit suicide while I was in, well, sorry, not commit suicide. See, I've got to learn not to say that for someone. Tried to end my own life when I was in high school, from many different reasons. And I mean, I'm really glad that didn't succeed, and I've got a beautiful child, and life is different now. But in that moment, you've got a lot going on, and I think if you've got that open platform with your child, and like Laura said, you know, you're able to just thrash it out. It's okay to ask the question. The most I can tell you to do is shove off or whatever. You give them time, maybe go back a bit later, but they know that you're there, and that's all they want. They want to know that we're there, even if we're irritating. Because I say to my daughter, I know I'm annoying, but can I ask you a question? She's like, oh, here we go. And also, if they don't want to talk, when my daughter did art therapy, the very lovely lady taught me, advised me to get a notebook. So if they don't want to talk to you, and you think, it's probably not right time, write them a note. Again, they may ignore it. Text them. But they know that platform's there. So nobody died from asking that question.
I'm going to add something on there. I didn't put it in the bundle, but I wish I had. And I'll see if I can add it somewhere. But it's quite a simple thing. Something that you can do with your teenagers if they are wanting to engage with it, because a lot of them won't. But if they do, and talking is too much, similar to the notepad, is to use different emojis on a text. So I've said it on some of the other workshops that I've done. But if your teenager wants to, so my girls have got a brilliant way because I work at home. The minute I'm about to come and see another client, they're like, I need to talk to you. It's really bad. And then I'm like, but I can't because I'm working. So, and then I feel guilty and all the mum guilt. We had different hearts, the different heart color emojis. So we had this scheme that was like, if they send me a yellow heart, I can't remember what the actual thing was. Yellow heart meant they were okay. Red heart meant they were okay, but they need to talk at some point in the evening. A purple heart meant I'm really not okay and I want to talk now. A green heart was like drop everything and come running. So we had this like this system. And every time I knew my anxiety, because I would be very honest with them and I say, I've got a lot of anxiety because I'm really worried about you. Keeping that communication open was allowing them to like, I'm feeling really anxious. Can you tell me what heart you're at today? And they would send me the green, yellow, whatever. And I'd be like, okay. The other good thing about that is they need to take control of their emotions. We're trying to build this logic brain. So these big emotions that are coming up and they're like, I need to talk to you, or they withdraw hoping you're going to see, they need to start learning how to emotionally regulate themselves. And we can do that by going, right, give me a heart. Give me which heart are you at today? Okay, actually, I feel all right. I'll probably be all right to talk to you this evening. Can we just have a bit of time later on? Fine. If it's like, I am really not okay, I'm on the brink of a panic attack and I'm going to hurt myself, then straight away, let's have a conversation. So getting them into something. Now, there's that one with the hearts. There's loads of things we used to do when they were younger. Was I'm a play therapist as well, so I work with the little ones, not so much now. But we would get stones out of the garden and paint them different colours, and then they would, because I'm a bit of a tea addict, I can put the kettle on 100 times a day. They would put a stone by the kettle, and I would know how they were feeling. The brilliant thing is, because we know logic isn't working, your language is sat here as well. They don't have the words to tell you they're not okay. So by giving them a colour or a object or something, you know what they're feeling. They know you know that they know what they're feeling. And they also know that you're going to pop up to their rooms at 7 o'clock and have a chat with them. So you're building that response of, again, some of the other stuff I talk about on parentology is comfort and solution. You're saying, do you want to talk about it, or do you just want to have a hug and watch a film or something? So there's
That control, isn't it? Back to
yeah.
them.
Yeah, they're not in the bundle. I wish I put them in, but if you do want them, send me an email and I can put them in over there. But it's finding a way to communicate with your teenager without sitting down going, come on then, what's happening? Because you're gonna get, I'm fine, nothing. Now, these conversation starters are what I use in therapy rooms. So when I've got a teenager who I am seeing, we call it congruence. For any therapists that are ever going to watch this, are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Congruence is about being completely open and honest with what I'm feeling and reflecting it back on the client. So, for example, I've noticed that a few things aren't quite right. I'm feeling a bit, I'm noticing things aren't okay. I'm wondering if you're feeling overwhelmed, because I can see they're overwhelmed. So I'm just saying, I'm just wondering if you're overwhelmed. I'm not here to judge. I don't say that as a client. I wouldn't advise you to say that. That's quite scripted. It would sound like you've walked out of a session. But I'm just wondering what's going on. So going in with curiosity rather than, you need to tell me what's happening because I'm really worried about this. I'm going to throw a disclaimer out there, actually. And if we can keep all this confidential, because my daughters don't like me talking about their mental health, but I will tell you this. When my daughter, she said to me, it was on her thigh, that the dogs had jumped up at her and the dogs had scratched her. And I went up, and this is not something, but this is my emotions kicking in. I went up and I threw that duvet off her legs and I went, show me your legs, right? This is not a therapy reason. This is not what I do to clients, but what I did with my kids. And she was like, what? The dog jumped up at me. I went, that is too straight and that's too clean to be, tell me what you've done. And I went in with pure judgment, not judgment. I went in with force. I went in with pure fear and anxiety. Tell me what you're doing. We're not doing that. That stops now. And that was my reaction. I had to really reflect on my reaction there and what I tell my parents that I work with, and what I can sit there and go, oh, I've noticed that you've got a few cuts on your arm. What is that? Blah, blah, blah. That's the stuff you're going to get off Google. That's not real. I'm putting it there because it is quite useful to have. But
No, but it's true, because we're parents, and the first thing you're going to say is, well, no, because what's going on? Why are you doing that? Because, but you don't, you're not thinking of that in the moment. The first thing you want to do, like I said earlier, is scoop them up and make it better. And you want to know what's wrong, and you're angry and upset that they're upset and they're hurt, and you want to fix it, and you don't know how, and there's all these emotions. So you're not, it's different, because the way I am in work, I'll go in and say, it's all right, so let's have a chat and, whatever. But if it's my daughter, it's a bit different. So, it's, so if you do that, don't feel bad, just, and if you feel like you've been a bit much, you can say, I am really sorry I reacted in that way, because again, you're taking responsibility for your own actions. And as we know, that our child then learns how to do that themselves. But it's okay to go, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean
Yeah.
to react like that. I'm hurt. I'm hurting because you're hurting. Not I'm hurt because it's not about you, but you say I'm hurting because you're hurting. So if you want to talk to me, you can. But it's okay to feel that way, which I can totally get why you put that out there, because it's
And do
true.
you know what?
We're normal human beings.
Absolutely. And we're going from our brain. So just to recap, if some of you haven't watched my stuff before, this is your brain. This bit here is your logic, cognition, thinking part of the brain, and underneath is your emotional brain. So when we get into these situations, it's your emotional brain that kicks up. And then within a few seconds, your logic kicks in. Teenagers don't have this bit. So when my daughter, well, it's my eldest one that come down and said, she's been cutting herself. And I went, right, rah, rah, rah. My emotional brain, I couldn't logically think. I was in panic state, right? I was like, what the hell's going on? Very quickly, I logically calmed myself down. And then I started asking these questions. So we're reacting very emotional to a very emotional situation. So self-compassion is extremely important, because every time your teenager does it, you're likely to react with emotion and fear. So this is not here to judge you as your parenting or anything.
Mm-mm.
It's about understanding that you are reacting to something very emotional. We as parents, especially mums, because the majority of us on parentology are mums, are programmed biologically to fix and rescue. And if they are hurting themselves, you want to stop them doing that. So be kind to yourself if you do react with anger or anxiety or fear or whatever it is. Biggest thing, like you said, Leah, is to go back and say, I'm really sorry I reacted like that. It really frightened me what you're doing. I've noticed that it's been a bit weird for a little bit longer. Talk to me. What's going on? I've noticed you've been a bit quiet. Remember right at the beginning, that quote of just noticing the quiet, subtle signs is going to mean the world to them. How often, right, do you have a day at work and you come in and you're really grumpy and fed up and you just want someone to go, you're all right, what's up? And then you can offload, right? Teenagers are exactly the same. That sounds really tough. Empathy, just show that, it sounds like you're going through a really tough time. We don't care about the friendship drama because we know it's all going to be okay. They, end of the world. If they say they're fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. There's something that I teach parents to do is to keep going back every half hour to irritate them, because what you're doing there is one of two things. You're showing them that you're there and you're showing them consistency. 11:30 at night when they want to talk about it, when you're trying to go to sleep, that's when they're going to do it, but at least they're talking. So even though they say they're fine, you can say, I hear you, I just need to know what's going on, because actually the fact you're putting a blade to yourself or you're doing something to yourself is serious, and I can't let it go on without me knowing what's happening. And then say, I can see this is really hard to talk about. I'm not going to push, but I just know that I'm here and we have got a whole ton of support for you when you need it and when you want it. But right now, I'm here. Forgot I was in control of the screen thing. You think that there's suicidal thoughts going on. So you've noticed this real shift in behavior. They've gone calm, they've withdrawn. There's a real deep depression going on. Let me explain that as well. Depression can go on for a long time, but when it hits a different depth of it, you'll notice a difference. Please believe me, you can see that difference. But if something is not right, come and talk to us. You can say that I've noticed you've been really down lately. Again, you're going to react with emotion first. That's absolutely fine. I just want to know if things have been too hard to handle. It sounds very overwhelming. I want to understand what's going on. That's where we talk about that congruence. Tell me what's happening. Empathize with them. If my daughter said to me I wanted to kill myself, I probably wouldn't go, thank you for telling me, but we've put it there anyway because it's a generic stuff you say. But I would be like, whoa. If I'm genuinely honest, if my daughter comes to me and says I don't want to be here anymore, I would grab them and hug them, and I'd be like, Dana, tell me what's going on. Empty your head. Let me know take me with you. What's going on? And I would really push them to open up and start speaking. If they say they're fine, but they've also said that they don't want to be here, I wouldn't leave them alone. Don't ever leave them alone. If they've expressed that they don't want to be here, do not leave them alone at all until you've got professional support involved. You can say I won't hear and I won't push, and there's no judgment and stuff. This is more for later on down the line. If you've got a consistently teenager saying they don't want to be here, then this comes into play. And reading through the presentation now, I'm thinking more in the immediate time. I would just be hugging them and staying with them, and then getting on the apps and the phone and getting support there and then about how to manage that situation. I don't know what you would say to that, Leah. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say just be present, because in that moment, I mean, going back to when I was a teen, I think in that moment, you just want someone to tell you it's going to be fine. You want that space to be able to just have that emotion. You want your parent to be present and be there. I mean, and I've got to be honest, we're, we're not saying that all. I'm going to say not all teams will tell anybody. I'm not trying to scare you either, just to make that clear. But it's the same with adults. Not all adults will say what's going on or what they're planning to, or that they want to end their life. But in that moment, if somebody does, especially your baby, you just sit with them, just be present. That's all I want, really. But also, if you're going to look for solutions as well, which is great, you can, in that moment, don't say, we're going to look for solutions right now. Let's give them that time. And what I found with our Ave is I've looked for solutions. Like when I looked at art therapy and I looked at this and and I said to her, because she does like a bit of crafting, does my daughter. I can hear her upstairs crafting now. And I said, these are the options that we've got that can help. So I then passed the control back to her. So it's just being present. We're just a sounding board, really.
Absolutely. Don't need to be perfect. You don't have to have the perfect words. You just have to have that calm space where they feel safe to talk and they don't feel judged. So they know that you're listening. Biggest bit of advice. Okay, the big ones. Don't do this at all. Very natural to want to, but don't. We've covered some of these. You're doing it for attention. You've got nothing to be upset about. That's a really common one to say. To them, they do. So if their perception is that the life is not good, then life is not good, no matter what you think. If you really feel that way, you would have done something by now. My God, you won't believe it. I've heard that.
Yeah.
But they don't mean it because they would have done it by now. They would have done it properly. Honestly, I've heard. Stop being so dramatic. And how could
Family
you do
members have said
me?
that to Ava before. I've said that to my daughter, and you have to say, it's not. That's not. That's not the case, and it's quite irritating. But and I've got to say as well, if you're anything like me, my parents, when my mum was very much, would probably have said all of these things to me at one point in my life. And what you do find, as much as you don't want to be, we're not all like it, but with a bit of education, it does help. Sometimes in our life, we might say something and think, oh God, that sounds like me mum. What we don't always know, and I don't know if you find this, Laura, that actually it's actually sort of part of us is ingrained in these things, brought up saying, don't do this, and you're just attention seeker, stop being a drama queen, go over there, like you're just annoying. And sometimes it's ingrained in you and it comes out and you think, oh crap, shouldn't have said that. Actually, that's something that we've learned. It's a learned behavior. It's not probably something that we actually think or want to say. I don't know if you find that, Laura, or if I'm just chatting rubbish. But it's something I've definitely learned, and I noticed that to change that cycle is very hard to break a cycle, but to change that cycle just by doing something like saying, so sorry I said that, it's just come out. It's okay because you're validating it. But sometimes we do say things and think, oh no, I've ruined everything. But it's normal. So that we can learn a lot of bad habits, but they can be broken. And we're here to support
That's the biggest thing, isn't it? Is being able to go back and say, I shouldn't have said it like that, or I was reacting because I was using my emotions were overrunning or whatever. But I didn't mean to click the thing, but I'm glad it was this slide because it kind of comes. I was getting overexcited, remember? But yeah, just listen, validate, and comfort. I'm very aware, as you were talking there, Leah, I thought this is really, it's very easy for us professionals to talk like this. And I really want to make it very clear that I'm available at the end of the session if any of you who are here today want to talk, or if anyone on the replay wants to message me once they've watched the video. Please don't get triggered by this, because it sounds like we're giving you so much advice to watch out for this and watch out for this and watch out for this. Lots and lots and lots of teenagers have suicidal thoughts. I don't know the actual stats, actually, probably should have that. It's not. Attempts happen, but actual suicides aren't as big as what we probably think they are. Self-harm is, and the idea thoughts are. So I don't want you to panic is the other thing. This is the whole point, is to give you knowledge and information. Stay calm. I'm laughing because stay calm. react and then go, I might change this presentation, because I think that's a bit of a daft thing to say, even if you're shocked. Set the tone. So if you are calm, then your teen will calm. So it's kind of like they're up here in their emotions. You join them very quickly because you're like, oh, freaking out about it. And then together you bring it down. There's quite a good technique to do that. So it's about meeting their energy levels. Listen more than you talk, because we can all over talk because we're trying to ease our own anxieties. We're trying to fix them. They're not broken. They are just struggling. Validate their feelings, even if you've got no idea what they're talking about. If you're not on social media and they're talking about all this stuff, then it doesn't matter. I've got clients, adult clients, that talk to me about their jobs, about being like lorry drivers. And I've got no idea. I've been in a lorry, but I'm dead interested in it. Fascinated by it. That was an old client, it's not a current one. But just, even though you don't understand, please just get into their world. It sounds tough, or I see this is really hard for you. A really good key things to say. Please keep that door open. I think that's just a given. I don't think we're talking to anyone here. You wouldn't be on this session if you were going to close that door and stick your head in the sand.
Yeah, I was going to say, because education's the main thing, that's how you're going to keep it open. But also, I know as a mom, and many of you lads probably have done it as well, where we've said something and think, oh crap, now they're never going to talk to me again. But actually thinking that, reflecting on that, shows that you probably aren't. That isn't actually the case. So don't be worried if you say something and it's, because I've probably said a million things wrong. Or it's come out in a weird way, or I've said probably a million things wrong in the week. But you sort of, it's that reflection. When you're having that reflection, it's actually shows you're not closing that door, and they will come to you. So
I will.
Don't be too hard on yourself.
We've gone over the hour, so as long as everyone's all right, then we'll keep going. If you've got to go, then you get the replay anyway, so don't feel you have to listen to us whittering on for much longer, but we are coming to the end. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we've hit the hour. But one of the big things that I wanted to talk about is we spoke right at the beginning, it's not about stopping the self-harm. Yes, ideally that's the big goal, but at the minute it's understanding why. So when a young person comes for therapy, or I work with a young person, I'm using self-harm as a guide to how their mental health is. So if they are self-harming every single day, then work with them. They're like, all right, I want to reduce that to once a week. Then we use that as a benchmark of how their mental health is, because their mental health and how they're feeling is causing the self-harm. There is an aspect of self-harm becoming quite addictive. So when you cut, is a biology lesson for you. When you cut yourself, your body releases endorphins to make you feel better. So you get a bit of a buzz when you fall over. I know that sounds a bit strange. If you fall over outside, your immediate body reaction is to make you feel better. So self-harm can become addictive because it starts to give you those emotions, those hormones that are coming out. Top that on top of the sort of looking after yourself. It creates in a self-care process. So sometimes understanding why they're doing it is the whole key to try and unpick this, because we are releasing that bucket of tension, or we're going to try and get the endorphin hit and the dopamine hit elsewhere. But that takes you knowing your kid.
And remember, cycles can be broken. So once that cycle starts, and that's something I've always, it can be broken in stages. It's, the first thing is noticing that it's happened, them noticing that it's happening and it's something they want to stop. So that way of thinking, it takes a bit of time, but it can be broken down. And that's something to reassure your teen or your child as well, that it can be broken down. It's something to have all the time. It's breaking it down. It will be broken over time. And it can be done, and it, with that consistency, it can. So yeah. So
You've only got two things that can never break. And this is an interesting fact for you. You are born with two fears, no others. You are born of the fear of falling, not fear of heights, fear of falling, and the fear of loud noises, involuntary responses. Every other single thing you feel can change. So that's why when we use the phrase, this too shall pass, that's a good one. Teenagers like that one. This feeling will pass. This cycle will pass. This self-harming behavior will pass. Nothing is set in stone ever. Even in the biggest trauma history things that we deal with, it can all be relearned. So offering that hope to teenagers is really useful. Two fears: fear of falling, fear of loud noises. That's the only fears that we have. So everything else can be changed. What do we do if they're talking about ending their life? You get professional help immediately. So you will be able to gauge how they're feeling. If it's then obviously A&E, or 111 option 2 is the mental health, NHS Direct. If it doesn't feel, now this is where your gut comes in. If you think, yes, they're not very happy, but immediately they're not going to do anything because I'm going to stay with them, and this is like 11 o'clock at night, like use your intuition, sleep on their floor, get in their bed with them, do what you need to do to keep them safe and you safe. Because as we know, it's so hard because I'm telling you to take it seriously, but we also know that tomorrow they could be feeling better. And if we've now brought all the emergency services in, then they're going to feel guilty or a burden. So use your judgment of best what to do. It's your gut that's speaking to it, but I would 100% do not leave them alone on their own if they are telling you they don't want to be here. The crisis team can offer, that's the CAMS crisis team, will offer immediate support if they go to A&E. Oh God, hold on, pressing me button to. I say immediate, it's as quick as a clinician can get there. So it's not like immediately walk in. You'll still have to do the wait at A&E, but at least you're in the support system. The crisis team usually work for a few weeks after immediately going into A&E. And they will come to the home and look at what's happening and support you at home. And then they will assess of whether your child needs to go into CAMS. CAMS is obviously the NHS youth mental health service, but you can also opt for private therapy if finances allow. So private therapists like myself, we can work very differently to what CAMS can. It all depends on which one works best. CAMS tend to offer the it's called CBT, that sort of approach of working with them and giving solutions and do this will make you feel better, don't do this, that sort of thing, without using the pun. It's like putting a plaster on the cut, right? Therapy that's private and we work, you're looking for the word child-centered, person-centered. This is where we start to work underneath the self-harm. We want to know what's causing that harm to happen. So that's where private therapy can come into place. We're trained to explore teenagers in a healthy way. Please, for the love of God, if you are looking for therapists, come through me and I can tell you where to find them. I've got a bunch of teen therapists that I work with. I sometimes have space open, but there are a lot of dodgy ones out there, especially we are unregulated. We're meant to be insured and fully trained, but there are unregulated people and they are in Bedford. So I warn you to please come to me and I will point you in the right direction. Actually, I'll just tell you, it's a counselling directory you need to go to if you're looking for a therapist, or come through me and we'll vet them together. Your teen's mental health comes first. You'll hear me ranting about this all the time. It doesn't matter what level of education stuff is going on. Your teen's grades will mean nothing if their mental health is shot. They can't go on through life if their mental health is not good, let alone what grades they get. They get an 8 in maths, if they can't function. So if they are self-harming, don't force them to stop. It is a coping mechanism. And through the help of therapy, parentology, or using some of the other tools that I've put in the bundle, it's about changing, like finding something else to use as a coping mechanism. Talking is obviously my favorite because I'm a therapist, but there's lots of other ways. It could be journaling, like you were talking there, Leah, about art and crafting. There's lots of other ways that we can use as a coping mechanism to distract from that urge to self-harm. I liken it to, I don't know if anyone was addicted to cigarettes back in the day. It's frowned upon now. But when you're addicted, when you had the urge, the craving for a cigarette, nothing, you couldn't do anything until you had that cigarette, until you'd had that nicotine hit. Self-harm is the same. The brain is craving that endorphin release. So therapy and the work that we do can help find a different thing. I can't give you a list of them because it's very individual. We have to get to know the young person, get to know what level we need to go for to hit it. Being open and honest, let them know that you're not angry or disappointed and you just want to understand. That's really hard when all you want to do is fix them. So be just honest with them. Focus on the reduction of the harm rather than stopping it. So this is what I'm saying. Make sure they've got some. We've been, I don't know if you've been on the Parenting Teen Hub recently, but I've got the self-harm care kits have been in touch. And I'm doing some work with them where they've got these like kits to help you do it. It sounds counterintuitive to give them the things to do, but we need to make sure they're doing it safely. That sounds very strange, but something we used to do when I worked at the school was we would give them a lot of attention when we were cleaning the wounds, and giving them that sort of one-on-one support and talking about it if they wanted to. But there was something about the patching them up, which was really therapeutic for them. and certainly for us as well, because it was like this care. It was a weird world that we were in. But definitely make sure they're doing it safely, and that they know how to care for their wounds as well. Or they certainly have a trusted adult they can go to if they're worried about a wound, if they've cut too deep, or they're worried about the healing process. Like I said right at the beginning, notice if it's that's not a word. Notice if it's impulsive or if it's planned. Impulsive self-harm can indicate, this gives us information. So if it's impulsive, it shows that there's a real trigger. We can find that trigger and we can work with the trigger. If it's to ground and calm, then we can work at giving different tools to ground and calm that don't relate to harming. One of the biggest things that I do with clients that tends to work is so simple. It's giving them a 5-minute timer. They've got the urge to go and harm themselves. Give yourself 5 minutes, distract yourself, go and listen to some music, have a shower, do something else. Things like cold water seem to break the cycle. And shocking the senses. Some of the stuff that I work with around anxiety is all about shocking the senses. They can also ground. But again, it's a very individual thing. And then just work on the root cause. Again, therapy can do that. One of the biggest things about parentology, I'm aware of the time, is a lot of teenagers won't come and talk to a therapist because it's weird. But what I'm doing through parentology is teaching parents the skills that I use in therapy so you can use them at home. And this is what we would do. In therapy, I would be working with the root cause. I wouldn't be working with the behavior, almost ignoring the behavior. Because if we draw attention to it, it creates shame and judgment and all sorts of other stuff. Self-harming is very shameful to a lot of young people. Looking after yourselves. We are always last on the list, especially as mums and dads, if anyone on the replay is watching it. So acknowledge your own emotions, don't ignore them. So that fear, that anxiety, that deep root, I can't shift this feeling because I don't know what they're doing right now, is really, really difficult. But also when they're having really good days, that this isn't going to last. Why can't it all be like, why me? Why my teen? You could be going through all these sort of emotions. So make sure you're getting support yourself. I keep banging on about parentology, and we're here. That's what I'm here for. So you'll be getting your own support. Set boundaries. Don't be frightened to put boundaries in place with your teenager. Remember I said earlier about how I would run up immediately after we'd had an argument and go, sorry, please don't hurt yourself, in that desperation, because actually they still need boundaries. They still need to learn what's right and wrong. And actually they can't get away with talking to us the way they were, whatever the situation was.
Yeah.
Don't worry about putting the boundaries in place. You're not going to damage them. In fact, you're probably going to contain it a lot more. We are, right, I've banged on about what I do all the time. So as you will all know, there is one-to-one support out there for parents through the app. There's a support app that goes inside it, which means you can contact me any time of the day or night and let me know what you're feeling, and I will get back to you within within a couple of hours and get back. Well, if you message me at 3 a.m, you're going to have to wait till I've had a coffee to reply, but I will reply. And that is what parents are finding that most useful, is the ability to just upload what they're feeling. So the fear they're feeling, the worry they're feeling, judgment from other parents of what they're feeling, So that's what the app is there for. And what's working beautifully at the minute, doing a bit of a dual approach. So I'm working with the teenagers and with the parents at the same time, and we've kind of got this dual kind of thing going on, which is lovely. But anything that I can do to support, please let me know. I've also got a bunch of therapists, like I said, that I work with, and lots of referral systems that we can get you through, so you're not alone. All of this and more is all in the bundle. So many helplines out there that are available for free to get that support. So just speak to people. These ones here, these parent focused ones, are amazing. Young Minds Parent Helpline is phenomenal. So there's lots of people out there. Where am I seeing? Oh, I've not put it on there. Childline for teenagers is brilliant. They can talk to a counsellor for hours and hours, and that poor counsellor must be knackered. But they can get on the chat room, talk for hours. They just talk them through it all. So please believe you're not on your own. All of this and more is in your packs. And I'm going to leave it on that. Simply showing up is much more powerful than you realize. Even if you feel that you're not able to do anything or say anything, or you're not getting it right, or you might be making it worse, or whatever, just being there is the most important thing for your teenager. That's what they will remember. And that's all we do in therapy, is we show up at the same time every week and we are there for them. That's all we do. That's all we do. We do a bit more than that. I don't think we just sit there drinking tea. I do sit there drinking tea. But that's kind of, I mean, is there anything else that you want to add there, Leah?
No, just I think it should all be really proud of yourself, really, for joining, to be honest, because this, like Laura said, it's not about sort of, we're not here to fix it, but it's about educating ourselves, and that's the most important thing. I'm still learning, even though I'm a suicide prevention trainer, mainly for adults, but you know, I'm still learning, and I'm still trying to understand things about my own teenager. So, you know, education starts there. So, you know, you're doing the best that you can, and that's all you can give, because you're here. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be here. So yeah, thank you for listening
Thank
to
you so much for
me.
coming, everyone. I'm going to hang around on the chat. I don't know if Leah, you're going to hang around. So if either of
Yeah,
you want
I
to hang
will.
around and have a chat, that's fine. I've also got the phone on, and I'll keep it on for the next hour or so. So please do message if anything has come up for you. But likewise, I'm around for the next Thursday and Friday as well. So feel free to jump on the phone if you want to have a chat about what's going on. But if there's anything you want from us, you know where we are. And I just hope this hasn't terrified the life out of you. I just hope it's
Yeah.
given a few tips and a few strategies. The bundle especially has got lots and lots of scripts in it.
Mhm.
Just adapt them to your own style, because if you're reading it like that, it will look a bit fake. So, but thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I hope this is recorded, because I will send it out as a replay for you in the next few days. And just well done. And thank you for joining us.